Okay, good morning or good afternoon, actually, for many of you who are in Finland. Welcome to our EOSC Finnish Forum webinar, GraspOS Benefits to Finnish Organizations. My name is Anu Märkälä. I work as project manager at CSC, and I'm here with my EOSC Finnish Forum engagement officer hat. And I'm very glad to welcome you to this webinar that we are organizing in collaboration with the Finnish partners who are involved in the GraspOS project. So today we have a very intriguing agenda that you can see on the slide. We will hear from like I said, the three Finnish organizations, CSC, Federation of Finnish Learned Societies, and University of Eastern Finland, who are working in GraspOS project, and they will tell us more about what are the benefits of this project to us in Finland. We have three presentations, and before that, Laura Himanen will give a short introduction to the project. Few words about the practicalities. So we will speak English as we have few EOSC Finnish Forum members who do not speak Finnish, and research is very international by nature, so we want to have everybody included. So as you can see, the webinar is being recorded. We will upload the recording to the EOSC Finnish Forum YouTube channel after the webinar, and also the slides and YouTube link will be added to the event page at the avointiede.fi, so you will get all the materials after the webinar. We have three presentations and quite packed agenda, so we have time for only a couple of questions after each presentation. So if you want to ask something, please raise your hand after the presentation and you can ask your questions. If you come up with questions during the presentations, you can also write them in the chat and we can take them up later, because at the end of the webinar, we will have a short Q&A session that will not be recorded. So we will stop the recording before the Q&A. So in the Q&A, we can take up any questions that we didn't have time to answer earlier. And as usual, we kindly ask you to keep your microphones muted while others are speaking. So without further ado, I give the floor to Laura to give us a short introduction to what GraspOS is doing.
Thank you, Anu. Let's see. I hope I'm showing the correct slide now.
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Laura Himanen. I work as a project manager at CSC IT Center for Science, and my task today is to give you a very brief introduction to the project called GraspOS. And I think that GraspOS is obviously an acronym. So I think that what the acronym comes from actually tells quite a lot about the project. So the full name is Next Generation Research Assessment to Promote Open Science. So GraspOS, in a nutshell, it is an EU-funded project that's lasting 3 years. We started in the beginning of 2023, and this is our last year. So in December, we will be finalizing the project. In the project, we have 18 partners from 10 different countries. And as Anu already mentioned, from Finland, we have CSC, University of Eastern Finland, and the Federation of Finnish Learned Societies. The aim of GraspOS can be summarized in a way that it aims to support the emerging policy reforms and pave the way towards open science-aware, responsible research assessment. So it is a project that tries to enable a more open science-aware, responsible research assessment. And here you can see the partners, and the slide's not here so that we can go through all of the partners. I think the slide is just to show you that it is a multidisciplinary, but it's also a multi-sectoral project. So we have research information infrastructure experts, we have experts in responsible research assessment, and also in open science. And then we have communities. And the role of the communities is to act as real life pilots through which we co-design and co-development in the project. So the project is using a user-centered approach to the development of infrastructure, tools, and services. So for this, we have 9 participating pilots, and these pilots will involve and are involving a diverse group of stakeholders into the co-design, validation, and evaluation of the infrastructures, tools, and services that we develop within the projects. And these pilots, they were selected to represent 3 different contexts for research assessment. And on my next slide, we have the GraspOS pilots based on what they are supposed to be representing. So on the national level, for example, we have CSC. So we're representing a national level research information system. Then we have research performing organizations. Here, University of Eastern Finland is one representative. And then we have different disciplines. And as disciplines, we have computer science, then the social sciences and humanities, and agricultural and veterinary sciences. And together, these 9 pilots from these 3 different levels are aiming to support the development of the kinds of infrastructure, tools, and services that are required in each of these different assessment settings. I think this is probably my last slide. Yes, so I am going to give the floor now to Jonas, who's going to dig a little deeper into what's the role of Research.fi here. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and happy to be here to discuss further the pilot work regarding GraspOS and the Research.fi national portal here in Finland. My name is Jonas Nikkonen. I work at CSC as Development Manager in the Research Information Group. We lead the activities regarding the Research.fi development, for example. And that's why I'm here also to discuss more on what kind of plans and activities we've had regarding the Research.fi in general and the GraspOS project within. Just one slide about Research.fi, if it's not that familiar to some of you. It is indeed a Finnish research portal. You can find it from Research.fi or tiede- addresses. The main idea here being that this is place a service that contains information regarding research made in Finland. So there has to be this kind of affiliation to a Finnish organization for all the, let's say, research entities that we have within the Research.fi. You can see on the right-hand side the 4 icons. Those represent more or less the, let's say, the 4 main goals for Research.fi in general. So being a national service, we obviously provide a landscape for Finnish research ecosystem. You can find Finnish research through our portal, but more importantly, and I guess regarding today's agenda, we also support the reuse of research information. So basically the idea that there are organizational systems that are being integrated on a national level and then providing that information back to the community via integrations, for example, the funder systems. And then one important part also being the one in orange, so the merit for researchers and making their research outputs, others than publications, etc., visible. And that's really for today's agenda as well. But if you haven't had a look yet, go ahead and see all kinds of aspects for Research.fi. But the ones I'm talking today are really regarding the GraspOS pilot, like Laura mentioned here. CSC is a pilot indeed in the project, and what we've been working on regarding Research.fi in this regards is really the relationship between this kind of national service, which contains information from Finnish organizations and the ones and the responsible research assessments, and also partly touching also the metric part. So basically investigating what kind of possibilities there are for open science to be more diversely available within the service that we have currently. That's the, let's say, the big picture on what we've been trying to move ahead. And then really the two concrete tracks, which I will be talking in the following slides, are the two below there. So the one in blue is really about the track that has to do with citational data. We are looking at the Open Citations database and looking for ways to make this kind of information feasible in the context of Research.fi and this national service. Also in terms of let's say, the applicability of this kind of information being available. And then the second track, which is also explored today, is on the openness profile that is being developed in the GraspOS. So basically the idea that how this kind of open scholarship or open science activities that the researchers are active within, how that kind of information could be conveyed through Research.fi, and also not really discussed today, but also about the interviews and surveys that we are doing for the individual researchers. But basically, those two tracks are what is on the agenda today, and then we are moving forward with the blue one. So the open citations part. This slide is a bit heavy, but basically it tries on the left-hand side to quite briefly go through what open citations is really about. This is a not-for-profit infrastructure, so open science infrastructure that provides open information on the citation data. So basically this kind of thing that has been behind paywalls of different sorts. For example, Web of Science and Scopus databases are the ones that usually provide this kind of information, but Open Citations has been there for quite a while, trying to make it public, the citations within publications public, in the sense that it could be reused in basically in many kinds. What Open Citations as a service does, they maintain this Open Citations index. So this is basically the part that has the information. So looking at the publication, they are getting the information on the citations within. This is something that has been missing from the Research.fi, pictured in the middle. So we have indeed Finnish organizations providing information of their publications to Research.fi. This has the history of, for example, the public funding model for universities within Finland. They have to provide information on the publications they make, but we haven't had yet any citational metadata for those publications. So basically what we've been trying to move forward with the GraspOS project, especially related to the open citations part, is basically threefold. First is really about enriching this information we get from the organizations with the citational data, and also the bibliographic data, if available. So basically making it so that we see what kind of information lies within the Open Citation Index, and then comparing and getting that information to Research.fi more or less. This includes the second aim as well. So basically the workflows regarding the Open Citation Index. So the idea that how do we actually technically make it feasible to have this index being integrated to Research.fi. And then I guess more importantly for today's audience is really about exploring the use cases for this kind of information within Research.fi. This is really has to do with the reuse of this kind of information. One main goal for Research.fi in general, and then also the research graph way of thinking. So how things are connected in this wider research graph. So we are looking at the publications, citing other publications or being cited by other publications, but also making it a bit, let's say, one step further, for example, looking at dataset to publication connections. So that's there. Regarding this track, really to look at the benefits for Finnish organizations, which is the main topic for today. We are now looking when the project is moving forward, and like Laura mentioned, being finalized this year. We are moving forward with having the Open Citation Index being integrated to Research.fi. So basically looking at the situation currently that all the let's say the publications within Research.fi would be accompanied with the citational data and the metadata available from Open Citations. The use cases for this are mainly to do with those two mentioned there, so showcasing the connections of publications in the portal itself. So the idea that you could follow the trail of citing from publication to one another, and then also making this data available, so the citational data available from the Research.fi API layer for organizations to reuse them if they want. And then another track here being the promotion of open access publications in general. So we are looking now at the ways to have this citation data only available for open access publications currently, more or less to emphasize that, as is in the Open Citation Index as well, the idea that it could be had for those publications itself. But that's really the first track, and the second one being then about the, let's say, the openness profile, more or less. So the purple track within this presentation. Some of you may be aware that in the Research.fi there has been quite a recent addition, looking at 2 years back, 3 years back now, about the researcher profiles being added to Research.fi. So the idea that, this is unfortunately in Finnish on the left-hand side, the idea that you could have your own profile, so researcher profile available within Research.fi, that you could, as an individual, control over. So basically see what kind of information of you is available in organizational CRIS systems or funder systems or others. We've also included the ORCID integration here, obviously. And this is really more or less the home for the second track of GraspOS activities for Research.fi. So what we've been trying to figure out for the researcher profiles within Research.fi is really on exploring the use cases for showcasing this kind of openness related activities. I will have a couple of screenshots from our prototypes in the next slide. So the idea that you could extend this kind of more traditional output oriented profiles to include more on the openness activities of researchers themselves. And this is also in the second point mentioned there about Research.fi acting as a testbed for this kind of openness profile concept. I won't go that deeply into that track here today, but basically we are looking at alternatives on making this information flow from Research.fi side to further services in the GraspOS sphere, so to say. And then the third aim really being about the workflows. So the idea regarding openness profile is so that all kinds of activities, not just publications or datasets, the more traditional ones could be promoted for the openness, open science promotion. So the idea that if you, for example, take part in some kind of working group, that it could be, if the working group is really about promoting openness or something related, that could be had in there. But really for the first and possibly the second track in the next slide, there will be a couple of screenshots. So on the previous one, you saw that, let's say, the more general researcher profile. Here are some of the prototypes that we've had currently related to the work we do within the GraspOS on how it might look in Research.fi in the future. So the idea on the left and right hand side both is that you could more or less promote the openness related activities on the left hand side, obviously by looking at the publications that are open access. So it mentions there the avoin, which is in the green tag, meaning open access, and basically having your publication list be available from that kind of perspective. And then on the right-hand side, this is also from the prototype side. So basically looking at the activities of individual researchers. You see there, for example, conference presentations, etc. So the idea that you could, as an individual researcher, add this kind of open science promotion related activities and then have them listed in your individual profile within the Research.fi. So that's the track we are moving forward with, and these are the prototypes, and we'll see how they come to shape up in the future. We are now holding interviews for researchers about these kind of advancements related to the openness profiles. For the second track about highlighting open science efforts, there are a couple. Basically, we are looking at extending the classification for these activities. So we have this national classification for researchers' activities. So extending that and then enabling at the same time a bit more diverse look on the activities themselves. Then obviously for Research.fi, this might benefit for the wider audience within Finland, is really testing out and providing feedback for this kind of researcher-centric approach in promoting openness-related activities. So basically in comparison to, for example, regarding publications that are being created for their open access metadata within the organization. So the idea that this could be done by the individual researchers within the Research.fi. And then obviously one main goal for Research.fi in general is about the reuse of information. So we are looking at the use case together with funders and organizations on how to possibly in some future integrate this kind of information of open science activities to for example, funding, reporting, and such. So that's one thing we'll be looking also for this work. But that's briefly put, let's say, the two concrete tracks that we are moving forward within Research.fi in the GraspOS project. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Jonas. There was one comment in the chat. So Laura already answered it, but maybe you want to check it out yourself as well. In the interest of time, I would say that let's move on with the next presentation so that we have time for discussion at the end. So next would be the presentation by the Federation of Finnish Learned Societies, Elina and Tiina. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Tiina will share the slides, but I can, in the meanwhile, thank everybody for coming, and thanks for EOSC Finnish Forum for inviting us to talk about our work, what we are doing with the GraspOS project. Yes, there we are. Thank you, Tiina. Okay, so my name is Elina Koivisto, and I'm a researcher by background, but for the past years I've been working with the Federation of Finnish Learned Society, first in the open science coordination, and currently I'm working with the Publication Forum as a senior specialist in responsible assessment. And the work we are doing with the GraspOS project is one of my main tasks. And Tiina, please.
Well, my name is Tiina Sipola, and I have been working for TSV now for 1 year. One of my main tasks is to prepare OSAP resources for GraspOS project.
Yes, so we are now telling us something about the Open Science Assessment Framework, aka OSAF, resources that we are developing at TSV. So first, what is OSAF? So Open Science Assessment Framework brings together processes and infrastructures to facilitate new assessment practices. And in this context, the assessment processes refers to the activities entailed in planning and performing research assessment, and the assessment infrastructure refers to the set of services aligned with the contemporary interoperability standards for research information systems. And our work is concentrating on the assessment process side, which is on the left-hand side. This is the picture of the whole GraspOS infrastructure. I'm not going to go into details, but I'm just showing this to give you an idea of what is going on in the project. And so the OSAF resources that we are working with is in the bottom left-hand side. And then I'm not going into details also about these services, but I'm just shortly telling what they are. So there's the openness profile that Jonas was already introducing. So that's a portfolio concept for making visible the contributions to open science. And then there's assessment portfolio, which is kind of like a working space for evaluators and evaluants where they can share documents that are related to the assessment event, etc. And the assessment protocol is a framework in which the assessment is conducted, providing details of the respective design. And these are all linked to RIDE, which is a research activity identifier. So a permanent identifier for different research activities. And I'm going to post you a link to the chat where you can read more about the technical sides from our report. So OSAF resources and OSAF is tightly connected to the scope framework. And shortly describing what is a scope framework, it's a 5-stage model for evaluating responsibly and a practical step-by-step process that is designed to help the research managers or anyone who is involved in these research evaluations to plan new evaluations as well as checking the existing ones. And the scope is an acronym and comes from start with what you value, context considerations, options for evaluating, probe deeply, and evaluate your evaluation. And the scope is a high-level assessment framework. So the idea of these OSAF resources is to complement this high-level framework with more practical instructions and help. And to that we are conducting numerous templates, guides, and checklists. And the collection of these items is what we call the OSAF resources. And since the theme of this webinar was benefits of GraspOS to Finnish organizations, we have listed shortly what are the aims and benefits of OSAF. So OSAF aims to facilitate the transition towards responsible research assessment with particular focus on contributions to open science. And these resources that are currently 19, so it's quite many, they support the structures, organization of research assessment process and information from initial planning through to the publication of assessment protocols. And these resources can be used for assessment of individual researchers and also different types and sizes of research entities like organizations, countries, and they are suitable for all disciplines. And these are of course not specifically tailored for Finnish organizations, but since we are Finnish, we of course are aware of all the good practices and guidelines that have been developed in Finland. So these appear in many of these guides and templates.
Here you can see the 19 OSAF resources. They are in groups by topics. OSAF resources are practical documents that are compiled based on published recommendations and publications. And exact definitions can be found in the Datum's report. Shortly about the all resources, starting from the upper row from left. First, there is the checklist to be used along the research process, and about evaluation, the evaluation. Second, about expertise capacities, level of maturity, obstacles for responsible research assessment, and any issues. Third, roles and expertises needed, and guidelines for evaluators. And 4, purpose, context, values for research assessment process and how to translate those into an assessment protocol. And then the lower row from left, resources for specification of values and stakeholders. Then the red box is the one we are looking more closely today in the next slides. Third, the strategy self-evaluation template is based on the Dutch version. And the gray box has resources that are prepared by other GraspOS collaborators. First, about Open Science Assessment Guide. It supports the selection of open databases and services and the variety of open science practices considered in relation to local open science policies and priorities. And it highlights the points of view that are relevant to consider in all types of assessment processes, both by persons who are being evaluated and the persons who perform the evaluation. And also the institutional point of view is discussed. And on the right, you can see the table of contents of the guide that has not yet been published. So this resource is also for all kinds of research evaluation processes and for all disciplines. Some pickups from the guide. It seems that open science research outputs, activities, and indicators are quite well identified, but there are challenges. For example, the correlation between interventions, outcomes, and research outputs. Interventions, outputs, and impact is difficult to solve, and also standards are missing. Up-to-date ORCID record benefits research infrastructures by propagating open metadata of open science contributions in non-commercial databases like OpenAlex, OpenAIR, and BIP services. And enhancing GRIS systems with the wide range of open science research contributions supports open science-aware responsible research assessment.
So next resource is a Open Science Aware Guide for Narrative CV template. So a narrative CV is a resource where you can showcase merits and skills in a structured and evidence-based manner. And we are using Resume for Researchers, Royal Society's template, and basically adding tips for recognizing a broad range of open science contribution and activities, and with instructions to how to document the evidence if required, for example, by using the openness profile. So this is the structure of the Royal Society's Resume for Researchers, which is kind of the most used narrative CV template. It has 4 modules. Module 1 is the contribution of generation of knowledge. Module 2, contribution of the development of individuals. Module 3 is contributions to the wider research community. And Module 4, contributions to a broader society. So the aim of the guide is to bring tips for the researchers, what kind of activities in open science they can promote in different modules. For example, in Module 1, there can be open access publications and shared data sets and open codes, etc. And in Module 3, activities in open peer review and activities in open science communities and so on. And the idea is to provide prompts that help the researchers to bring like what is the most relevant question in each module in the sense of open science. And then in addition, we are also planning to bring guidelines for evaluators on this same template on how to evaluate the open science activities that the researchers are bringing up, but this is kind of preliminary work yet.
Next, about the guide on the diversity of open science contributions, roles, and activities. It's a resource that helps to recognize a broad range of open science activities and contributions. And the aim is that all these are considered and all who are contributed are recognized. And again, on the right, you can see the table of contents of the upcoming guide. Some pickups from the guide. So as said, anyone who contributes to the administration, design, conduct, or dissemination of research should be recognized. And the guide has something also about the scholarly communication ecosystem, which has very strong network effects, where mutual dialogue and collaboration leads to greater transparency of research. According to research, societal impact of open science increases efficiently with multi-stakeholder and citizen science projects. And integrating credit roles in ORCID and Crossref is important for making open science contributions visible. On the right, there is the circle describing open science skills, and in the guide more about the skills. Next steps for OSAP. We are developing resources together with GraspOS community, and later this year the resources will be published in general community, and they are open for everyone. Resources can be used and customized by organization to fit their needs, and follow announcement, for example, in the publication forum pages. And this was all from Elina and us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there any direct questions with presenters? If not, we can then move on to the last presentation.
And the last presentation is a hybrid indicator model for the evaluation of social interactions of open science. And together with my colleagues Anni Tarkiainen and Heikki Laitinen, we are going to present this model. In UF pilot study, we explored and utilized less used data to construct new indicators for more extensive and efficient recognizing as well as rewarding of scholarly activities. We examined the social activities of the University of Eastern Finland. For example, media presentations, popular publications, public lectures, citizen science activities, etc. from University of Eastern Finland CRIS database and Virta, that is Finnish National Publication Information Service that integrates institutional CRIS data at the national level. This Virta data storage is behind the Research.fi service that Jonas presented earlier. We developed a semi-quantitative indicator model that could be used to monitor open science and to verify and make visible the social interaction of a research organization or a research unit. In this project, we also interviewed the University of Eastern Finland's management and responsible experts to hear their views on the university's social impact, research assessment, open science evaluation, and knowledge management. In our study, UEF, University of Eastern Finland, worked as a case example of a research organization. And now my colleagues Heikki and then Anni will continue.
Afternoon, and nice to see you all here. So it's evident that science has an impact on society. If we think, for example, advances in healthcare, new medications, new innovations like electric cars, we know that they are at least somehow based on science. But to make a quantitative estimate of this impact, it's very difficult or even impossible. We can't use those methods like citations, etc., to make an estimate about this impact because they are not cited like in academic literature. So we need kind of different approaches, and we know that there are these interactions between science and society, and this SciAmpli project, it was an EU project about 15 years ago. They kind of categorized those interactions into 3 groups. First of all, there are these direct interactions, like giving, for example, public lectures, going to media, collaborate with private sector, etc., kind of directly between people, and they can be recorded, make an evidence for the further use. And also these indirect interactions, like, for example, popular publications, which also can be stored in the database. And there are also these financial interactions like grants, but we didn't use those. So we concentrated on those 2 first interactions, direct interactions and indirect in the form of popular and professional publications. And they kind of make an evidence for our work. Our work is based on those recorded evidence that are recorded into these publication systems, like, for example, UEF GRIS. And then we kind of devised kind of proxy or intermediary or something like that we call level of effort or level of evidence. And that's kind of supposed to act in a way that the impact is created more or less sooner or later. So that's kind of one aspect of this impact is this level of evidence or level of effort. And we call it hybrid because we have combined with these direct interactions and publications together. We kind of incorporate them into one indicator we call hybrid, and that's supposed to be evidence-based because it's based on these recorded interactions. And they give an estimate about what that level of evidence might be regarding this impact creation. And I think Anni can tell us more about this practical work, what we did with these interactions and how did we calculate this hybrid indicator.
Okay, thank you, Heikki, and thank you, Katrin. Nice to see you all. Well, like Heikki said, we needed to combine something, and first thing we had to figure out was how to combine these data sets. And we wanted to create a model that is easy to use and easy to modify in the future. So we had these 2 data sets that we wanted to combine, but we couldn't do it without understanding what the data is about and what these data sets have in common. The UEF GRIS data with research activities, which is data A in the chart, needed more work than Virta data, which is actually the Research.fi data. For example, we had to map the organization names and choose which activities are important in the data A in the UEF GRIS data. And based on the amount of work we had to do, the data handling was put into route A for UEF CRIS and route B for Virta data. And also we had this optional route C, which was used for open air explore data, and those results are reported in the GraspOS project later. Next, please. Thanks. So a bit deeper look at the different data. So maybe for Finnish people, this is quite familiar, but in the UEF CRIS dataset, it was the institutional guidelines and categories are followed, and in the Research.fi, the national guidelines and categories say what there are. And other thing is that research activities are recorded by the researchers themselves in the UEF CRIS. Also, the research activities could be filtered to important activities and roles, which allows to use the data for specific needs regarding the UEF CRIS data. And the final one. Thank you. So for the closing, we were able to create the hybrid indicator using these datasets as examples, but the data recording practices need improvement before the indicator can be used in real life. One other question is how the first hybrid indicator model can be made better and what other options could be used for the methods and statistics. And finally, we look forward how the indicator model helps to notice the societal activities that are done to achieve societal impact, for example, in the Research.fi openness profile. I think that's all from us from UEF. Thank you for your attention, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking part in the webinar and presenting. Now we have some time for discussion.